Chapter 23. The codec beeped. Master Miller was on the line. "Thank you, Snake. Now the detonation code is completed. Nothing can stop Metal Gear now." Snake wasn't sure he had heard his former trainer correctly. "Master, what's going on?" "You found the key and even activated the warhead for us too. I really must express my gratitude. Sorry to have involved you in that silly shape memory alloy business." "What are you talking about?" "We weren't able to learn the DARPA chief's code. Even with Mantis's psychic powers, he couldn't read the chief's mind. Then Ocelot accidentally killed him during the interrogation. In other words, we weren't able to launch the nuclear device, and we were all getting a little worried. Without the threat of a nuclear strike, our demands would never be met." Snake shook his head. Was he dreaming? Was he in a nightmare? This was Master Miller talking. "What do you mean?" Snake shouted at the codec. "Without the detonation codes, we had to find some other way. That's when I realized you might prove useful." "What?" "First, I thought you already had the information and that we might get it from you. So I had Decoy Octopus disguise himself as the DARPA chief. Unfortunately, Octopus didn't survive the encounter, thanks to Foxhound." Snake was livid. "You mean you had this planned from the beginning, just to get me to input the detonation code?" "You didn't think you made it this far by yourself, did you? I admit, Vulcan Raven and Sniper Wolf tried to kill you. They had initiative I couldn't control." Snake gritted his teeth. This guy wasn't Master Miller. "Who the hell are you?" "In any case, the launch preparations are complete. Once the world glimpses the power of this weapon, the White House will have no choice but to surrender the Foxhound vaccine to me. Their ace in the hole is useless now." "Ace in the hole?" "The Pentagon's plan to use you was already successful in the torture room." Miller laughed. "Snake, you're the only one who doesn't know. Poor fool." "Who are you anyway?" "I'll tell you everything you want to know, if you come to where I am, that is." "Where are you?" "Very close by." Colonel Campbell cut into the conversation. "Snake, that's not Master Miller." The man on the line replied. "You're too late, Campbell." The colonel continued. "Snake, Master Miller's body was just found at his home. He's been dead since last night. I didn't know because my codec link with Master Miller was cut off. We've been trying to locate him, and I couldn't figure out how he was contacting you. Then Mei Ling said his transmission signal was coming from inside the base." "So, who is it?" Snake asked. "Snake, you've been talking to..." "Me, dear brother," Liquid Snake announced, dropping the electronic enhancer that had disguised his voice. "Liquid, how the..." "You've served your purpose. You may die now." Snake looked through the observation window and saw that Liquid was inside Metal Gear's cockpit. The man waved and beckoned Snake to come down. Anger and frustration took over. Snake drew the sockum and fired at the glass, but the bullets bounced off. "Snake?" It was Otacon on the codec. "That's bulletproof glass. You can't break it with an ordinary weapon. Snake ran to the door and punched every button he could find. Liquid had sealed off the room earlier. Can't you open the security lock here? I'll try. Just hold on a second. Snake looked out the window again. The mech was plodding along the platform as Liquid attempted to get used to the controls. The man was an expert pilot, so it wouldn't be long before he mastered the beast. Hurry up, Otacon. I'm running out of time. Just a little longer. Damn. Snake slammed his fist against the metal wall. It didn't hurt a bit. I'm hacking into security. Liquid's bone-chilling laugh was transmitted through Rex's audio system and echoed through the maintenance lab. Come on, Otacon! Snake shouted. Almost there! Almost! There! The door slid open. Snake rushed out onto the demolished catwalk, sidestepped the hole, and looked down at Liquid and his dangerous new toy. Solid Snake! Come on down! The Foxhound operative called in a mocking game show host voice. Snake wondered how he was going to get down, since the top of Metal Gear was no longer within jumping distance. Then, to answer his unasked question, a section of the platform began to rise. Liquid was able to control it from inside the cockpit. Snake had been unaware that such a hydraulic lift existed, but it made sense. When the die was high enough, Snake stepped onto it. Liquid then reversed the hydraulics to bring the lift down. As it moved slowly, Liquid held up a pair of sunglasses, the ones he had used to disguise himself as Master Miller on the Codex monitor. How do you like them, Snake? Worked pretty well, I must say. Snake drew the sockum. Oh, you'd point a weapon at your own brother. You had Master Miller killed. Snake spat. So I could manipulate you more easily. You performed quite well. The lift completed the trip to the floor. Snake stepped off as Liquid added, although the boys at the Pentagon are probably saying the same thing. Snake was steaming. What the hell are you talking about? Liquid shook his head and said, Tisk, tisk, tisk. Following orders blindly, with no questions asked. You've lost your warrior's pride and become nothing more than a pawn, Snake. What? Stopping the nuclear launch, rescuing the hostages. It was all just a diversion. A diversion? Snake stood 30 feet away from Rex. The hulking mech stopped moving and faced him. The Pentagon only needed for you to come into contact with us. That's what killed the Arms Tech president and Decoy Octopus. You don't mean... That's right. You were sent here to kill us so they could retrieve Metal Gear undamaged along with the bodies of the Genome soldiers. From the beginning, the Pentagon was just using you as a vector to spread fox dye. That can't be true, Snake shouted. Are you telling me Naomi was working with the Pentagon? They thought she was. But it seems that Dr. Naomi Hunter couldn't be controlled so easily. Explain. We've got a spy working in the Pentagon. He reported that Dr. Hunter altered Fox Dye's program just before the operation. But I must admit, no one knows how or why. Snake wondered if that was why she was arrested. Perhaps Campbell was trying to find out the answer to that question. I had no idea she was motivated by such petty revenge, Liquid said. We still don't know what changes she made to Foxhound, but it doesn't matter. I've already added the vaccine to my list of White House demands. Snake lowered his gun a bit. There's a vaccine? Surely there is. There has to be. But that woman is the only one who really knows. At any rate, it might prove to be unnecessary. Why is that? You were successful in coming into contact with all of us, so we must have all been exposed to the virus. If that's true, then the Armstech president and decoy octopus were likely killed by Foxhound. But Ocelot, myself, and you, the carrier, were apparently unaffected. Could it be a bug in the virus's programming? In any case, if it doesn't kill you, then I'm not worried either. After all, our genetic code is identical. So it's true. You and I are... Yes, Big Boss was my father too. We're twins, but not ordinary twins. We're twins linked by cursed genes. Les enfants terribles. You are fine. You got all the old man's dominant genes. I got all the flawed recessive genes. Everything was done so that you would be the greatest of his children. The only reason I exist is so that they could create you. That revelation almost made Snake laugh. I was the favorite, huh? That's right. I'm just the leftovers of what they used to make you. Can you understand what it's like to know you're garbage since the day you were born? Snake had no answer to that. He simply stared at the man in the cockpit, trying to digest everything he'd just heard. But, Liquid said, raising his index finger, I'm the one Father chose. So that's why you're so obsessed with Big Boss. Some warped kind of love? Love? It's hate. He always told me I was inferior, and now I will have my revenge. You should understand me, brother. You killed our father with your own hands. You stole my chance for revenge. Now I'll finish the work that father began. I will surpass him. I will destroy him. Snake snarled. You're just like Naomi. Well, I'm not like you, Liquid said. Unlike you, I'm proud of the destiny that is encoded in our genes. Encode this, you bastard. Snake raised the sockum and spray fired, but the cockpit lid fell into place with the speed of a blink, and the bullets ricocheted off the bulletproof glass. Again, Liquid's laugh resounded throughout the lab. That was your last chance, Snake. Your blood will be the first to be spilled by this glorious new weapon. Consider it an honor, a gift from your brother. Behold, Snake, the power of this weapon that will lead us into the future. With that, Metal Gear emitted an ear-splitting roar, as if it were a dinosaur from a long-lost world. My God, Snake thought. They even gave the thing sound effects. And then the 12.7mm machine guns let loose with a hail of bullets in Snake's direction. Luckily for him, Snake had been anticipating the attack. Every nemesis he had ever encountered loved to gloat and to make a grand speech just before pulling the trigger. The only question was when the talking would end and the fighting begin. Snake's training incorporated reading the telltale signs in an opponent's eyes and voice inflection. The talkers were almost always the easiest foes to stay a step ahead of, but that applied only to enemies who weren't sitting in the most highly advanced war weapon ever devised. Nevertheless, Snake somehow knew when Liquid would cease sermonizing and start brawling. Just as Liquid's fingers gripped the triggers, he was performing a cartwheel out of harm's way. At the edge of the platform, he jumped, did a somersault in the air, and landed on the other side of the sludge moat. As Snake ran along the lab perimeter, Metal Gear turned, bellowed again, and took 3 steps forward. The high-intensity laser shot forth from the mech's underbelly and blasted a pile of crates to bits. Snake stopped running just in time, doubled back, and leaped back over the moat to the platform. By that time, he'd been able to slip his hand into the pouch and remove a frag grenade. He pulled the pin and threw it at the cockpit, but the detonation failed to crack the glass cover. Snake then dug out 2 chaff grenades, pulled the pins, and threw them at the machine. At the very least, they would do some damage to the beast's targeting sensors and radar. Liquid's response was to fire a Phalange F anti-troop missile at Snake. Snake leaped forward to escape the worst effects of the blast, but its force propelled him directly between the walking behemoth's legs. Momentarily stunned, Snake realized he was lying on the floor, looking up at Rex. From that perspective, the Metal Gear was awesome. It was either a magnificent, terrifying creation of which mankind could be proud, or it was a demon that would damn them forever. How the hell am I supposed to stop this thing? Snake shook away the cobwebs clouding his mind, just as Metal Gear's enormous foot rose and prepared to stomp down and crush the operative to a pulp. Snake rolled out of the way as the heavy, elephant-like appendage slammed onto the platform. The room trembled as if a minor earthquake had struck. The Stinger. It's the only way. He managed to get to his feet and move around the mech. The Stinger case was on the other side of the lab, across the platform. Snake knew he'd be wide open and susceptible to attack, but the only thing he could do was make a dash for it. Without a second thought, he started running as if he were competing for Olympic gold. The machine guns shot at him, but Liquid intentionally missed. Instead, the bullets prevented Snake from running in a straight line. And as soon as Snake changed direction in an attempt to zigzag across the platform, Liquid fired the guns and tore up the floor just inches away from his prey. When Snake was nearly halfway to his goal, a barrage of bullets halted his momentum. He was forced to leap to the floor and roll, and that left him dangerously vulnerable. Liquid laughed, directed Metal Gear to look up at the ceiling, and launched another Phalange missile. The rocket exploded on the metal roof, causing large pieces of heavy debris to fall onto the platform. Snake had to roll towards the sludge moat to avoid being crushed by the wreckage. Of course, the ceiling rubble was like confetti to the Metal Gear. He looked at the moat and realized that he had to do it again. It was the only way to get to the Stinger. Snake held his breath, closed his eyes, no time to fish out his goggles, and slipped into the sludge like a salamander. He struggled as hard as possible to swim through the muck quickly, turn a corner, and emerge on the side of the room where he had stored the weapon. Snake gasped for breath and crawled out just as Metal Gear's laser cut through the air above his head and obliterated the wall in front of him. He jerked his head down to evade the chunks of metal and brick that bombarded him, but still felt as if he was being beaten by 100 fists. As Liquid's laugh and Rex's dreadful roar filled the room, Snake crawled to the pile of cartons and crates and placed his hands on the Stinger case. He opened it quickly, picked up the launcher, set it on the floor, and carefully loaded one of the 3 rockets into it. He then stood and faced the metal gear, which was standing amid the rubble on the platform. Where to strike? The radome was the dish on top of the mech that controlled many of the radar sensors, the targeting, and the movement. That was the thing's Achilles heel. Make Master Miller proud, Snake told himself. This one's for you, my friend. Snake squeezed the trigger and the stinger shot out of the launcher. The violent recoil against his shoulder was gratifying, for the missile struck its target dead on. The explosion was intense, and for a moment the mech staggered, but the radome remained intact and functional. It was definitely damaged, but not nearly enough. He had 2 more missiles and was going to need both of them to do the job. But before he could move back to the case to retrieve a second stinger, Metal Gear fired a rocket at the grouping of crates. Snake leaped aside and rolled into the tunnel connecting the lab with the warehouse, which provided him with sufficient cover to protect him from the blast. The entire building rocked with the explosion. "Come out of there, Snake!" Liquid shouted. "You're not a mouse! Come out of your hole!" What was he going to do? If he went back inside to grab the stinger case, Rex would blow him to bits. There had to be some way to distract Liquid and get him to... "Get away!" The voice came from behind him. Snake whirled around to behold the cyborg ninja standing a few feet away. The samurai sword was safely in its sheath, but the man formerly known as Frank Yeager held a portable Vulcan cannon in his right hand. "Grey Fox!" The red light on the ninja's face covering glowed brightly for a second. "A name from long ago. It sounds better than Deep Throat." Snake blinked. "Your Deep Throat?" "You look terrible, Snake. You haven't aged well." The ninja walked forward, but Snake felt that he was no longer a threat. "Fox, why? What do you want from me?" "I'm a prisoner of death. Only you can free me." The metal gear roared loudly outside the tunnel. "Fox, stay out of this," Snake said. "What about Naomi? She's hell-bent on taking revenge for you." The name evoked a reaction. The ninja paused and lightly touched his face. "Naomi. You're the only one who can stop her." "No, I can't." "Why?" "Because I'm the one who killed her parents." Snake had no response to that revelation. He waited for the ninja to continue. "I was young then, and couldn't bring myself to kill her too. I felt so bad that I decided to take her with me. I raised her like she was my own blood, to soothe my guilty conscience. Even now, she thinks of me as a brother." Snake reached out to his old friend and said, "Fox." But the ninja moved so that he couldn't be touched. "From the outside, we may have seemed like a happy brother and sister, but every time I looked at her, I saw her parents' eyes staring back at me." Grey Fox stepped closer and touched Snake on the shoulder. "You must tell her for me. Tell her I was the one who did it." "Fox." "We're just about out of time. Here's a final present from Deep Throat." Before Snake could stop him, the ninja rushed out of the tunnel and into the arena to face the beast. Well, look here, Liquid taunted. In the Middle East, we don't hunt foxes, we hunt jackals. Instead of foxhounds, we use Royal Harriers. How strong is that exoskeleton of yours? Snake, are you just going to sit by and watch him die? Grey Fox shouted to the cockpit. A cornered fox is more dangerous than a jackal. And then the ninja lifted the Vulcan cannon and fired a succession of shots at the cockpit, producing considerably more damage than Snake's inflective grenades had. Metal Gear returned fire with the machine guns, striking the ninja with dozens of rounds, but the exoskeleton succeeded in deflecting them. Grey Fox leaped sideways and darted to another part of the lab with lightning speed. Hold still, you bastard! Liquid demanded. Snake eyed the stinger case that lay just a few yards away. This was his chance, for Fox had diverted Liquid's attention. The operative dashed to the case, removed the second missile, and loaded it into the launcher. He then performed a broad jump over the moat and walked to the center of the platform. Metal Gear's back was to him, but the radome was in plain sight. Snake shouldered the weapon, targeted the dish, and pressed the trigger. This time, the explosion nearly knocked the radome off Metal Gear's body. The mech reacted as if it actually felt pain by bellowing with the volume of 1,000 elephants. Metal Gear wobbled on its feet, almost as if Snake had blinded the thing. The rail arm groped about as Liquid struggled to regain control of Rex's appendages. Snake took the third and final missile out of the case and loaded it as Grey Fox crouched in front of the walking weapon. The ninja fired the cannon again, this time concentrating on the radome area. But the heavy rail arm swung, knocked the cyborg down, and held him prone. Grey Fox struggled to pull himself out from under the machinery, but it was no use. And then Snake watched in horror as Metal Gear's right foot lifted and poised over the ninja's helpless body. It happened simultaneously. Liquid lifted the rail arm out of the way so that he could stomp on Grey Fox with the foot, but that action gave the cyborg the opening he needed to fire one last volley from the Vulcan. Metal Gear's foot fell just as the ordnance struck the radome at its epicenter. Flames erupted from the top of the mech as the gigantic dish crumpled and slipped to the floor. But the ninja's exoskeleton radiated a powerful electrical charge as Frank Jaeger was crushed by the tonnage. Impressive! Liquid announced. He was indeed worthy of the codename Fox. But now he's finished! But the destruction caused by the stinger and the cannon fire had taken a far more serious toll on the mech than Liquid had expected. The entire top of Metal Gear burst into a blazing concoction of fire and electricity as several pieces of the structure broke away. Even the cockpit's cover separated from the nose and crashed to the ground, exposing Liquid. For the first time since the battle had begun, the Foxhound terrorist appeared concerned. Metal Gear was stumbling around the platform, out of control, and crying like a wounded animal. A foot splashed into the moat and nearly tipped the mech, but Metal Gear merely lifted the foot out of the sludge, bringing a section of the platform with it. Snake rushed over to where Grey Fox's broken body lay and knelt beside his friend. The red light was weak, and there were sounds of measured, shallow breathing. The exoskeleton had been crushed, and the ninja obviously had suffered severe trauma. Snake examined the helmet and found the latches that held on the face mask. He quickly loosened them and removed the plate, revealing the scarred, beaten face of Frank Jaeger. The man whispered, "Now, in front of you, I can finally die. No, Fox. I'll get you out of here. I'll go and get help. Grey Fox ignored his friend. He knew it was too late. After Zanzibar land, I was taken from the battle, neither truly alive nor truly dead, an undying shadow in a world of light. But soon it will finally end. Snake, we're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at, but at least I always fought for what I believed in. Farewell, Snake. Fox, no! But his friend expired with a final exhalation of breath. He prayed for death, and it found him. Liquid gloated through Metal Gear's speakers. He had managed to gain control of Rex's steering mechanism, but the behemoth still wobbled unsteadily on its feet. Snake remained kneeling by his friend, but slowly grasped the grip on the Stinger launcher. You see? You can't protect anyone, not even yourself. Now, die! With split-second timing, Snake twisted his body, placed the launcher on his shoulder, aimed at the open cockpit, and fired. There was a tremendous explosion, caused not only by the Stinger, but also by the destruction of Metal Gear's central computers and power source, which was located behind the nose. Liquid screamed as flames engulfed Rex's entire shoulder area. Snake covered his head, but watched through the gap between his arms as Metal Gear quivered violently and went down on its knees. Then, with the weight and force of a falling building, the world's most dangerous weapon toppled over and crashed onto the floor. The room jolted violently, knocking Snake over and into a blanket of darkness.